I'm Amanda and welcome to Self. On this podcast, I share ideas, experiences, and have conversations to explore the self. By developing our own self-awareness, we can better show up for ourselves and those around us, and hopefully all live happier and healthier lives. On today's episode, I have a very special guest joining me. Her name is Ruby Josif, and Ruby is a certified holistic sex coach and female sexuality specialist. She supports women to do the inner work and healing so that they can feel confident and alive in their sexuality and experience deep pleasure and create a sex life that nourishes them on a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual level. I am so excited to have you join me. Hi, Ruby. Welcome to Self.
Hey, Amanda, thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited about this conversation.
What led you down the path of becoming a sex coach, and what brings you here to where you are now?
Yeah, I get asked this question all the time because it is a bit of an unusual career move.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I've always been someone who is really curious about sex and sexuality. Through high school and even middle school and high school, I was always, the friend that people would come and lean on for support, relating to relationships and sex. And I was always sort of that safe space for people. Um, and as I kind of got older, I had a really pretty pivotal relationship when I was about 17, 18, and I was in a really abusive relationship. And I felt incredibly caged in that relationship, and I felt incredibly disempowered, and I really lost that sparkle that I had when I was younger, and I really lost that.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear
um
that.
yeah, yeah, it was a pretty big time in my life, and once I left that relationship, quite unconsciously at the time, I felt like a bird who had been freed from this cage, and I began to really connect back in with my sexuality and explore my sexuality. As I got older, I was living in quite a remote part of the country, and I was still very curious about sex. And I met a woman who was right into the world of tantra and sacred sexuality, and I just learnt so much from her, and she sort of opened my mind to this whole other way of relating, and this whole other way of that sex was available. And I was in a relationship at the time, and she sort of was unofficially mentoring me in this space, just providing me with lots of information and support materials, and podcasts. And I just started to learn about it, and I was just hooked. Like, I was just hooked instantly. The fact that there's this whole world of sexuality that was so new to me, and there's just so
Yeah.
much possibility in it. So from there, I sort of discovered that becoming a sexologist and sex coach is a viable career path, and you can actually do that, and you can actually have a career supporting women to uncage themselves as well, and to really deepen into their own essence of sexuality, and to discover that and explore that. So for me, it was this very
Wow.
natural progression into the work of it.
Mm.
And now that I'm in it, it feels so right, and it feels like exactly where I'm meant to be. I'm so passionate about it, and I love what I do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's go back to what your journey looked like to get you where you are now, being able to help facilitate and hold this space for women. It's mostly women that you're working with, it sounds like.
Yeah. So I work with women primarily. Yeah.
For that journey, I mean, whether you want to talk about what that relationship looked like and how you felt in that space, or we can even just skip forward to when, I guess, like that work started within you, wherever you want to go from. I'm just curious and want to hear more.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for me, it really began when I left that relationship. And it was this freedom, this sense of freedom and this liberation that I'd never experienced before. I grew up in quite a um, small town. I grew up in Darwin in the Northern Territory, so it's quite isolated. And
Yeah.
yeah, anyone's been to Darwin, especially
I
like
mean, it's a
15 years ago.
city. It's a city. It's just
Yeah,
like a much
it's
smaller city
Darwin.
than
I
other
love it up
cities.
there, but
Yeah.
it's definitely
It's
quite
a great place.
isolated. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's got a lot going for it, but I think yeah, it's quite isolated. And I moved to the East Coast. I moved when I was 18, I moved to, or 19, moved to Byron Bay area, which just kind of like
Totally different.
totally different, just such a liberated, free place. And I remember moving there, and like I said, I felt like this bird who would just be like freed, and I was just like, oh, I can just
Yeah.
spread my wings. And that 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 liberation piece really started for me, skinny dipping and just laying topless on the beach and just starting to connect back into my body as my own body and not as something that was controlled and manipulated by someone else. And it was this real remembrance of
Mm.
my sovereignty and my autonomy over my body. Um, and I think that was probably the first big piece for me. And then I suppose with the the sort of the pieces following that, I was then in a relationship that was actually quite healing, um, after being in an
Wow.
abusive relationship, one with someone who was yeah, a really kind, loving person. And that sort
Yeah.
of created a real safety, like an emotional and physical safety that allowed me to continue to it really supported me in that liberation that I felt. There was no stifling. It was
Yeah.
very much like just like supportive and bringing me up, I
Just
suppose.
open. Yeah,
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
really say I completely understand. I've had
yeah,
that relationship in the past, and I'm really fortunate to have a great relationship now where I
yeah.
completely agree with you. The right kind of people who come into your life, and the right relationships really allow space for that healing. And when, there's just this supportive and loving
Mm,
atmosphere with no expectations, it just fosters that environment. And I'm glad you
absolutely.
got that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was so polarizing after, that previous relationship that was so abusive and so controlling and so
Yeah.
stifling, I suppose.
So
And then
you
I
talk
saw,
about sorry, I just, if I can pause there and ask you, you talk about feeling this sense of liberation after the relationship. Can I ask, I guess before that, did you grow up in quite a conservative home or anything?
I didn't. I was actually really fortunate to grow up in a family that was very comfortable with nudity and speaking about sex. It was never
Yeah.
something that was shamed,
Mm.
or demonized. I was really fortunate. Both my parents like old hippies, and they were just like,
Yeah,
your
cool.
body's your body, and nudity's great, and don't, So I was really quite liberated as a young teen. And it was very much this relationship that was almost
That
like,
turned it.
yeah, it really just stifled and controlled, everything, everything liberated about me. It was such a disempowering, relationship. And not to be a victim or anything like that, but it was, I don't see myself as a victim in that. I see that relationship as such an amazing, um, learning and point of reference in my life. And to have that experience
Mm.
so young has really, in a lot of ways, allowed me to choose relationships that are nothing like that. Having that point of
Yeah, yeah,
reference was like this deep learning of like, oh, so that's what a red flag looks like. That's
yeah.
familiar. I know what that is. I'm not going anywhere near anything like that. So it was very consciously choosing relationships after that. And, my current relationship now is the most expansive relationship I've ever been in. It's just so supportive and beautiful. And I feel a lot of my, um, the deeper pieces of liberation have really come to light in this relationship, in my current relationship with my partner. He's just someone who, holds so much space for all of me and for
Yeah.
all of my pieces, all of
Every layer of
everything.
you, every part of
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
so,
hear that.
so with that has really allowed an even deeper exploration, I went through, my period of being single prior to this relationship where I feel like I dropped even deeper into my sexuality, into finding that sense of liberation, and then to be with a man who's literally just like, yes, I love all of this, and like, how much deeper can you go? Show me more, like, I love
I just
all of
want
it.
more of you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's like
Wow.
nothing's taboo, nothing's off limits, nothing's too much. It's all welcome. So that's been, I
Mm,
suppose, another really beautiful piece as well. Yeah.
I love that. So you come out of this relationship where, to me, it sounds like you were so liberated as a young, very young woman,
Yeah.
as a teenager, very free. It sounds to me as well like you had a great connection with yourself and your sexuality, which a lot of young people aren't given the opportunity to. Like, that for sure was not the case for me growing up in a
Yeah.
very, very strict conservative home. When you're in this relationship, could you see those parts of yourself like dimming down, being, I guess, like fading away and being turned down?
Yeah. I honestly, I think when you're in a relationship like that, it's quite hard to see it. But when I
Yeah, yeah,
looked
for
back,
sure.
when you're in a relationship, it's quite hard to see any of that. But I remember there was a few times where I felt so low, and I would reminisce to before
Mm,
meeting that partner, and I would reminisce to like my 15, 16-year-old self, who was just so free and so uninhibited and so like
yeah.
sovereign in herself, at such a young age.
Mm,
And I just remember like deeply missing that. And I felt like I could, and in hindsight I could just see my light dimming down, and having to
yeah.
control, like having to be so conscious of everything I said, who I spent time with, what I shared on social media. Like every part of me
Yeah, I
was
get
so
that.
contorted and contrived. And it was, yeah, in
It
hindsight,
was
it
just
was
not you being you.
not at all. Not at all. It was so
And then so
disconnected.
you come out of this, you move to Byron Bay, which
Yeah.
is very different, the total opposite. And you spoke about obviously feeling liberated and free and then being able to explore. What did that period of exploration look like for you?
That period of exploration it was actually a really tricky time. It was like moving for the first time, leaving home, moving into a totally foreign place, and just being like a kid from up north. There's no one from Darwin on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And so being down there, just feeling, I felt like a bit of an alien for quite a long time. I moved into a couple of different share houses and had some pretty wild experiences. It was just like, the first time you sort of get out of that sheltered bubble of where you grow up, and you go,
Hmm.
"Oh, whoa, there's a big wide
This
world
is
out
what's out
here.
there.
Whoa,
Yeah.
this is big." And I guess just navigating that, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about um yeah, I learned a lot about what I really wanted to create in my life. And I learned pretty
Mm.
quickly, being on the coast, that being by the ocean is something that I needed for myself. I needed to
Hmm.
be close to the water. That and I think I really developed and deepened my connection with the ocean when I moved there. It was really such a point of cleansing and solace, and it was like something every day I would swim in the ocean. And it
Mm.
was tricky finding friends and like finding my way in a community that's quite a cliquey place. I think Byron's a pretty cliquey place and can be quite tricky to sort of find your way, especially so young. Um,
Yeah.
and then I guess just, that liberation it just looked like doing everything that I, wasn't allowed to do when I was like, meeting new friends, going out, having casual sex, just being like, "Oh, I'm 19 and I'm free. This is great."
Yeah.
It was a very unconscious time of my life, but also such a fun time of my life that I look back on with, yeah, a lot of love,
Awesome.
a lot of love.
What did you
Yeah.
learn about yourself at that point? And since then, I guess, like looking back now, how has that version of Ruby changed to who you are today?
Yeah, I think looking back, and specifically relating to my sexuality, I think, I really did use my sexuality as a way to gain validation from other people, and
Mm.
particularly when I
Yeah.
was in that sort of stage after my that breakup, my sexuality was something that I was already there was quite a deep connection there, but there was also quite a lot of unconscious pieces and patterns that were
Hmm.
playing out. And in hindsight, and something that I've been working on a lot, over the past few years is, you know, how powerful my sexuality is and how powerful all of our sexuality is, um,
Mm.
and not allowing, like, not misusing that power, I suppose. So not misusing it. So I really felt as though I was misusing it in a way that I would like use it to gain validation or manipulate or like, get what I wanted. And so in hindsight, that's probably been a massive lesson for me is, not I guess not using my sexuality as something as a way to gain validation, but as something that is a channel to keeping to connecting deeper in with myself. And it's something that's for me that
Mm.
I can then choose to share with people who are deserving and people who
Yeah.
can receive that and hold all of that.
Yeah, do you think that was you kind of, I guess when we're in super controlled environments, it's like a kid who grows up, well, me, growing up in a really strict home. So then the moment you break free, you almost swing, like the pendulum swings to the other side, where you go, all right, well, since I felt so trapped and controlled for so long, and now I'm free, I'm just going to completely let loose and you know, kind of go crazy and let go,
Well,
do whatever. And then we kind of find some balance after that in a happy
yeah.
medium.
Yeah, 100%. It was 100% that. It was just like breaking through the barriers and it was like, "Oh, I'm so free right now. I can do whatever I want." And yeah, I think it was probably the first time in my life as well that I had no one telling me what to do, whether it be parents or a
Mm,
partner. It was just like total freedom. And yeah, I loved that. And I started to really find after that, pretty hefty pendulum swing, I did start to find balance and
yeah.
start to come back to, for me, something that I really lost in that relationship as well was my connection to nature. I really lost that, and I
Mm,
actually started to really rediscover that and rediscover those parts of myself as well, which was a really beautiful thing too. Yeah, and I suppose I learned a lot in that time that I never wanted to compromise my true self ever again
mm,
for any relationship. Mm.
yeah. So, what did you learn? I guess like through this pendulum swinging, and then you find this balance. What did you learn about your truest desires? Like, what was it
Mm.
that you could then go, actually, this is how I know I'm aligned with me?
Yeah,
What do
I,
those
I think
things look like?
I think about this a lot, and for me, my core desires are connection, like true, authentic, uninhibited connection with people, whether it be
Mm,
partners, friends, family, that truly deep, nourishing connection. And
mm,
being close to the natural world and peacefulness and
yeah.
feeling peace in those connections and feeling peace in my surroundings. Those are like my core desires. And I definitely learnt that in that time post breakup for sure. Mm.
Yeah, wow. And then, so, through this journey, you're here now guiding and facilitating this space for women. And you talk about pleasure, you talk about creating a sex life that nourishes people on multiple levels, like holistic sex.
Mm.
What does that mean?
Yeah, I think for me, it's a really nourishing sex life that is nourishing on that holistic level is choosing, not so much choosing, creating a sex life that welcomes every piece of you,
Mm,
and choosing partners who welcome every piece of you, and also developing a connection with yourself that allows all of you to be welcome. So I think
Yeah,
that,
that's beautiful. For me that sounds like that's the first thing, right?
yeah,
Is creating a connection with yourself first, which
yeah,
is sounds to me like that was your journey. That's what you did.
yeah, absolutely. And I think so often what happens when we are disconnected from ourselves is we we really kind of push a lot of the things that we don't think should be welcome or that we think are unsexy down or to the side.
Mm,
And then they actually become massive blocks, massive challenges, and massive barriers when we're trying to connect in with ourselves and other people. So, and they
mm.
become like almost like these, like these blocks in our sexual system that we have to kind of move through to really deepen into that connection and to allow our sexual energy to start to really ignite and move.
How does one know if they are blocked?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think we know. I think you kind of have that, and I know that sounds a little bit,
Like
wishy-washy,
an
but
inner knowing.
you do. You know, and you can feel it. And I think there's, you know, blockages can either be like you either intuitively know and you can really feel that like in your tummy, like you can feel that intuitive know whether, oh, there's something present right now that's blocking me from experiencing pleasure or from being able to open up or connect with people. And then I think it's also
Mm,
important to notice when those blockages may actually, like, that knowing is maybe it's actually a trauma response that you're experiencing. And I think it's
mm,
very much down to the felt senses within your body, whether you're experiencing some sort of, residual trauma response, or whether there's just like this intuitive knowing that there's something, not right there, something that needs your attention. Not so much not right, but
yeah.
more that needs your attention. Yeah.
Okay. And so when, if an individual is to experience this and they come to you and they're like, Ruby, help me. what what does that look like?
Yeah. So I think it's so different for everyone. I think it always comes back to, like we were saying before, really creating a deep connection with yourself and exploring the pieces
Mm,
that are not congruent and that are blocking pleasure, that are blocking the ability to connect with self and with other people. And I think that process looks like conversations. It looks like really feeling into the body and really
mm,
giving whatever is demanding attention. Like I mentioned
mm,
before, so often we push aside the things that are inconvenient or uncomfortable, or we push them
mm.
down or push them to the side and we try and push through and be like, no, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. I can have sex. I can connect with people. I feel fine. It's fine. And then you get there and you're like, oh my God, I am not fine. So it's sort of
Yeah.
really bringing those pieces into the light and giving them the love and attention that they need to be worked through. And
Yeah,
it's
really
not
being
always,
honest.
yeah, and it's not always like a quick and easy process. Like this can take a lot of time. And I think as well, for people who have experienced trauma, the residual effects of trauma and in the system can take time to work through, but
Mm,
it's all completely possible. And it's all, I think it all just requires a lot of time, love, and attention, and courage to look at the pieces that are a little bit ugly, to look at the pieces that are painful, and to, really bring those into the light.
yeah. Do you think we live in a world where people are more disconnected or more connected, either to themselves or to each other?
I think that's a really tricky thing to comment on because everyone's connection to themselves is so different. I think
Mm,
with the influx in technology. I think people are more distracted than they've ever been. And I can say that a lot of people I work with are really come to me because they feel so disconnected from themselves. There's
Mm.
so much pressure, there's so much pressure just in general
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
to be connected to yourself, to be on all the time, to I guess be this like perfect human and to present on social media in a perfect way and to, be doing your yoga and doing exercising this and being successful. And there's a lot of pressure to get it right in
Yeah,
society.
yeah.
And I think it can be easy to get caught up in trying to make everything look perfect and everything present perfectly. But actually, that's just a veneer over a really deep sense of like disconnect to our true desires and to what truly feels good in
Mm.
our bodies and in our nervous systems.
Yeah.
Mm,
And what practices do you apply for yourself so that you stay connected
yeah.
to you?
I think for me, I have a couple. I love connecting in with my emotions and connecting in with the feelings and
Mm.
sensations in my body. My self-pleasure practice is quite has quite a wide berth. It's like connection to self and bringing pleasure to myself in
Mm.
whatever way I'm desiring or whatever way that I'm actually needing in order to nourish myself. So, experiencing if I'm having a day where I'm experiencing a lot of grief, my practice that day will look like sitting down, putting some music on that feels really resonant and feeling what needs to be felt, allowing my
Mm-hmm.
emotions to be present, and then going, okay, what do I need to nourish this? And, that might look like touching my body, really physically connecting in with myself, um, moving, dancing, just really giving myself what I need moment to moment and not
Mm-hmm.
ignoring that. Because I think connecting to ourselves, I think the disconnect comes from ignoring our needs. It comes from ignoring what our bodies, what our hearts are actually asking from us,
Yeah.
you know? I think that's a big piece. So yeah, for me, my daily practice, which I try and do most days, but again, not perfect, don't do it every day, but really dropping in and being really present with myself and my feelings and allowing my erotic energy to run and allowing that to be a a part of me that is really alive as much as possible and being able to drop into that so that can come through in my business, in my work, and in my relationships and with myself as well. But yeah, and I think other things like, movement, being in nature, these are all great ways to, yeah, just really connect in with myself and what I desire and creating the life that I desire. Mm,
I think for me, hearing you share that, I guess I start to reflect on the ways that I connect with myself, in times when I feel like I'm giving so much to the
mm,
world around me and I'm giving a lot to others. There's kind of a point. I think typically speaking for myself, I would let it go on a little bit longer before I can fully acknowledge, hey, I'm feeling a bit disconnected from myself and I
mm,
need time. But hearing you share that, I'm just thinking, hey, are there times when I really give myself what I need in that moment, or am I accustomed to just going to the same tools that I know? And that was something really interesting for me to just reflect on, because I guess a lot of us would have kind of this same toolbox, right? Where it might be, let's say, for me, I love nature as well, and I love
mm,
exercise, and yoga, meditation, or perhaps listening to some music. But just hearing you say in that moment, on any given day, actually asking yourself what it is that you need. And you also
mm.
framed it, you mentioned self pleasure. And when you said self pleasure, I thought masturbation straight away. But then
Yeah,
as you were describing, I'm like, it's so interesting because pleasure doesn't have to be sexual satisfaction.
yeah,
And I could really picture you, being there in a moment with listening to music, being there just with yourself, and um, really providing a space for you to love yourself and to connect there and to receive from you, and receive pleasure from that that's not sexual. So it's
Mm,
just interesting that when you said self-pleasure, I was like, oh yeah, she's masturbating, and then you described that, I was like, that's
mm,
not what she said, that's just what I heard. um yeah, so it's just interesting to hear you share this kind of like great big toolbox you have, and to talk about pleasure in more than
mm.
just a sexual sense.
Yeah, I love that about self-pleasure, and I think that's a huge misconception, is that self-pleasure equals masturbation, and I feel that that
Mm.
can be really limiting for a lot of people, particularly if you're experiencing like blocks sexually. So it's like, oh, I can't
Mm-hmm.
possibly self-pleasure because I feel so shut down sexually. But pleasure is medicine. And pleasure, like you said, it doesn't have to be sexual pleasure. It can be sensual, it can be nourishing, it can be healing. And something, my self pleasure practice personally, like, yes, sometimes it is sexual, and sometimes
Mm.
it does involve orgasm, and sometimes it does involve, penetration, or, more things akin to masturbation, that real cultivation of sexual energy. And a lot of the time, it's just nourishing myself, giving myself
Mm.
what I need, which feels pleasurable. Sometimes that's
Yeah.
just giving myself like a massage on my body, or tickling my face, or giving myself a head massage. Like, self pleasure really doesn't have to be um, sexual at all. And I think it's such a
Mm.
beautiful tool to connect us back in with ourselves, and connect us back in with what we're needing. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you always have this large toolbox of different things that you could go to for self pleasure? Or how did you, I guess, like come to discover these different things? Because I think even the idea of someone giving themselves a hug, like touching yourself in a nurturing, like caressing your body, even that
Mm.
might be really foreign to people, the idea of that. So is this something that you've always, had? Was this something passed to you, taught to you by your parents? Or how have you come upon these different tools?
Yeah, so when I was studying, I was mentored by she's one of Australia's leading sexologists. She's amazing. And
Mm.
her sex coaching teachings are incredibly holistic and incredibly open minded. There's no limitations on her teachings, and I found that amazing
Mm.
because it she provided this um she provided really expansive views on topics that often are quite narrowly described. So
Mm.
her name's Kiki, and so Kiki described self pleasure a lot as not having to be something that's sexual, and that for me really that teaching
Right.
opened up a lot. And that's how I
Yeah.
teach self pleasure now as well. So it's absolutely not something that I was taught young. It was something that I learned as an adult, and something that I really support. And I think if we can if we can incorporate more self pleasure in our lives, and not necessarily self pleasure in a sexual way, but as a way to give ourselves the support and healing and nourishment, as well as sexual pleasure, as well as building that
Mm-hmm.
safety within our body, it really just deepens the connection with self. And it also deepens our ability to listen to our body and to listen
Mm-hmm.
to what we need, which gives us the foundations for being able to communicate what we need, to be able to communicate our boundaries. So when we're really disconnected from ourselves, when we're really disconnected from our desires and our needs, and we're not listening to our bodies, we're not communicating that. We're kind of going, we're
Mm.
being passive in that sense, and we're going, okay, cool, like whatever,
Yeah.
I'm easy, go with the flow. I'm not listening to my body now. But when we have that really deep connection to ourselves, and we can actually really communicate from that place of of knowing and of listening, that's when we can start to really expand how we interact with other people and how we can have our needs met, because we know and we can communicate from that place, and we can feel
Yeah.
really strong in what we're communicating because we know there's no second guessing. It's like, I know my body needs this
Yeah.
right now, I know my heart needs this right now, so I'm going to communicate that.
Yeah. And definitely as a practice, I find that leaning into that when you listen to yourself, I feel like it's this voice that becomes louder and clearer the more that we listen.
Mm.
And so that doubt slowly fades over time, because then you just know, there's no delay, there's no second guessing the more that you practice listening
Yeah.
to that inner knowing, that
Yeah.
intuition. Yeah.
Yeah, it creates trust.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly that. I think for me, um, from past experiences, I've had several seasons or chapters in my life where I've really lost trust in myself,
Mm.
and regaining that and relearning how to trust myself is something that has taken a lot of time, and that's taken being able to listen to that voice and backing it even when
Mm.
perhaps on the outside it might be like I'm not sure that I should, and doing it anyway, and then going, yeah, actually that was the right call to make, and I'm glad I backed myself. And I think just rebuilding that trust within yourself allows you then to know yourself better. As
Yeah.
you said, it's that connection to self first, and then we're able to then communicate that to others and connect with others. So,
Yeah.
through your journey, in reconnecting with yourself and then in studying holistic sex, how has this impacted your relationships and your relationship with your partner now?
Mm. So I really dived deep into this when I was um, single. So
Mm-hmm.
previously to my current relationship, and it was initially like connection to self. It was just that deep building of confidence and inner knowing and trust,
Yeah.
and then stepping into my relationship with my partner. It supported me to open to
Mm-hmm.
really open on like a physical, mental, emotional, sexual level, spiritual
Yeah.
level, to just fully open. And in turn, that has been his invitation for him to open as well, and vice versa,
Wow.
and vice
Mm.
versa, and, but choosing to be with someone who, could hold all of me. And I think that was a
Yeah.
big thing, not settling for someone who wanted to keep me small and who didn't want me to deepen into my expression and deepen into my my purpose and my work and my own practices. And I think as well, really stepping into this work has just like my mind's just blown wide open. It's like everything is welcome. We can talk about anything. We can try anything. Like
Yeah.
everything is welcome. And
Yeah.
even if it's just a conversation, even if it's just a conversation about maybe we would like to try this, or, how does that feel? I think this works just like deepened my relationship on every level. And I think, yeah, I almost don't have words for it. It's just this level of depth with someone that I've never known before, and I'm deeply grateful for that,
Yeah.
and deeply grateful for him to have the strength and the courage to hold all of me as well, because it's a lot, and it's an unusual
Yeah.
line of work. And society shames women like me. Society shames women who are confident in their sexuality and who are comfortable in their sexuality. And it shames women who are expressive in their sexuality, and
Yeah.
it's like, I'm studying psychotherapy as well. And, I was thinking to myself the other day, I don't know what I'm going to do when it gets to placement, because I have, semi explicit photos of myself on social media. And it's like, that's still inappropriate in the eyes of, tertiary education. Oh, we probably can't hire her because, there's these explicit images of her. Like there is still so much taboo and so much shame and
Mhm.
so much,
Mhm.
um, yeah, so much negative feedback around this line of work. And so I've digressed a little bit, but I guess, for my partner, navigating all of the rhetoric present in the world,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
you're not going to be with someone who's, posting naked photos of themselves, that's so promiscuous, like navigating all of that, and also all of his conditioning about, how could you share that with so many people? And he's been amazing. He's been so amazing in just like
Yeah.
opening his mind and, um, I guess just supporting me in such an unapologetic way. And
Yeah.
I'm so blessed to have a partner who is so supportive of that, and who's so willing to look at his own stuff as well, and to look at the conditioning present and in his
Yeah.
life that's, maybe made him think those things in the past as well. Mm,
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking a few of these things as you were sharing, whether about conversations I imagine that you guys have had. I think naturally, because what you're doing is, it's not like sex is anything new. It's not like the
mm,
idea of pleasure is anything that we haven't experienced. It's such a fundamental, natural part of our human
mm,
experience, but as you said, is so taboo. So I can imagine that there have, that this line of work would naturally perhaps bring about some insecurities, perhaps some doubts and stuff. Not because it's your fault at all, but as you said, because of conditioning in society, it's the fact that a woman's body has
mm.
always been tied to be looked
Ownership.
at, yeah, objectively, yeah, ownership, to be sexualized, that it's not a beautiful
Mm,
human body, I guess, to be celebrated,
yeah,
something that can be empowering for the individual, something that a woman can choose to share or not to share publicly or not. It's, I
yeah,
think women's bodies have been put into a box for so long, and then we have this movement, and then, like anything, you've got two extreme ends where
mm,
one side will be like, cover yourself up, and it's
mm,
not empowering, it's embarrassing
yeah,
and shameful and all of that. And you've got the other extreme side that's like, let's go ham and I can do whatever I want, which, more
yeah.
power to people. So have you guys had some, challenging conversations navigating this as you've grown on social media and as you've progressed in your
Mm.
line of work?
Yeah, it's that's a beautiful question. We had one really pivotal conversation when I first started sharing my work on Instagram, and my partner felt really insecure about me posting, semi-naked photos of myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was a really pivotal conversation because his insecurities came up and they were projected onto me of, you can't, like, how could you do that, like, how can you, disrespect our relationship in that way, like I feel disrespected, blah, blah,
Mm-hmm.
this, it was a tirade and it was coming from a place of insecurity. um,
Yeah.
and it was an opportunity for me to very clearly say, hey, I understand you feel insecure, and that's okay, but this is my body. This is how I am operating. And it circles back to that first relationship or that, that abusive relationship where I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm never being controlled again. And it was like, I remember having that girl in my head being like, absolutely not. Like, we're not changing who we are. And it was,
Yeah.
yeah, it was just like, this is my body, this is my choice, and this is who I am, and I am not changing that, and I am being really strong in that. I am not watering myself down or diluting myself
Mm-hmm.
to make you feel more comfortable. That's a you thing. And that's something that you need to work on. I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm still operating within all of the boundaries of our relationship, but I'm not going to change how I express myself. And I'm not going to
Yeah.
change how I share in my work. And it was a really pivotal
Mm.
conversation. And my partner, he really reflected on that. He really reflected on, the conditioning that he had received that had told him that what I was doing was wrong and, inappropriate or whatever
Yeah,
that
that it was
story was.
disrespectful. Yeah.
Yeah, and he really reflected on that, and he's like my number one supporter. Like he's just like,
Yeah.
just so supportive of it and so accepting of all of me. But yeah, those
Yeah.
we've definitely had those tricky conversations for sure.
Yeah, it's beautiful that you really stood firm on
Mm,
your ground and recognized, because in those moments, I'm sure a lot of people, particularly a lot of women, have experienced that, where there's this dressing up of um, a control, even though,
mm,
his intention was probably not to actually control you. But as you
not at
said, by
all. Yeah.
projecting his insecurities in that moment, what actually comes out is, I'm trying to control your actions. And
Mm,
it's, you know, dressed up sometimes as boundaries,
yeah.
which they aren't. Like, it really is actually just control. And what's so beautiful is that that was an opportunity for you to, I suppose, like, prove that trust to yourself. Your
Yeah.
whole journey leading you up to that point was, you've come from this kind of relationship before, and you
Mm,
could see that and identify and go, hey, this is a you thing. And then really for him to be able to go away and to
mm.
reflect on that and go, yeah,
This is a me
actually,
thing. Yeah.
yeah, this is a me thing, and I'm going to
Yeah.
work through this.
Yeah. And he's
Yeah,
honestly
wow.
like, yeah, just want to be really clear on the fact that he's just so amazing at that. Like, and I'm
Yeah,
really
yeah.
grateful to be with a partner who's so reflective of things like that. And yeah, it was a really beautiful point in our relationship and a really beautiful way that we connected deeper after that. And I think it goes to
Yeah,
show,
100%.
like there's no relationship comes without hard conversations and
Yeah, of
insecurities being
course.
projected. Like, I don't care how conscious anyone is, like, we project our insecurities onto our partners, you know, well, not all the time, but like it happens no matter how conscious
It
the relationship
happens.
is.
Well,
It
you're
happens.
human. We have our
Yeah.
stuff, and I think no matter
Yeah.
what, things just come out. There's always
Yeah.
going to be parts of us that come out, and we're like, I think reactively we go, this isn't a me thing. It's because you're doing this.
Yeah.
But how powerful is it to be able to have a partner who goes, hey, I see you. I see why this is going on for you,
Mm.
but I'm not going to take it on. This is an
Yeah.
opportunity for you to reflect back, and then for him to hear that. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, like I am not perfect at all. Like he is that person for me so often as well. So it's beautiful. It's such a
Yeah.
reciprocal relationship in that way, which I'm, yeah, very grateful for.
Yeah, and
Mm.
like, coming back to being in the kind of relationships that allow your healing, that's exactly it. I can
Mm.
really see that in that moment for both of you, forming
Mm.
that deeper connection, but also that would have facilitated a space for healing for him as well. And then for
Mm.
you to be able to speak honestly and truthfully, and then to have that
Mm.
received and not thrown back in your face as like you're being a shit
Yeah.
partner by not doing what
Yeah.
I say, that he was
Mm.
able to just go, yeah, cool, I'm gonna think about that. I'm gonna reflect on that. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, 100%. It's been beautiful to be in a relationship that has really that is like the foundation of our relationship is being a mirror for one another, and it doesn't come
Yeah, I
without its
hear that.
challenges. It
Yeah,
doesn't.
yeah, yeah. No, I hear that.
Yeah.
David and I say the same about each other, and David.
Yeah.
Which yeah, like, you knew him before I knew you, so yeah, like, that's what we say about each other, and it's such a beautiful thing when you can do that. And not
Mm.
only is it that you're mirroring, you act as mirrors for each other, but that you're both willing to see what's in the mirror. It's
Yeah.
one thing, like relationships will always be a mirror whether you like it or not, but it's whether
Mm.
you choose to see what's being mirrored to you and then do something about it.
I love that. That's exactly it. That's so beautifully said, Amanda. That's, yeah, exactly right. It's the willingness. It's the willingness to see it and the willingness to action change, because it's all well and good to be like,
Mm,
okay, yes, I see that part of myself that's a little bit, icky and probably needs some loving attention. But then it's
yeah,
another thing to actually action that and to put things
yeah.
into place to create change for the future and for the growth and evolution of the relationship. Mm,
Yeah, which really kind of coming full circle comes back to that connection with yourself, not being afraid to go to those places to do the work for yourself, because that's hard. I think
absolutely.
when we see things in ourselves that are ugly, that are, these dark sides that perhaps
Mm,
you've been able to ignore or push away, push to the side or suppress for so long, you
mm.
can't hide from that when someone mirrors that back to you. Hey.
Yeah, if someone's literally like, "Hey, you need to look at this."
Yeah.
You're like, "Oh,
Yeah,
okay."
exactly.
And
Yeah.
and it is, I something I really am working on at the moment is not getting defensive when those things are brought to light
Mm,
for me, and
yeah.
really working on not going, actually, no, I don't want to look at that. I'm going to be really defensive and deflect that away, but really
Hmm.
welcoming in that discomfort and really welcoming in, oh, okay, where's that landing in my body? Does that feel true? Okay, yes, that feels true. How's this playing out? What do I need to support myself? How can I action this to do better down the track as well for me and
Yeah.
for my relationship? Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, I think that's a tricky one that I dare say most people probably either have struggled with or do struggle with, is not becoming defensive when things are brought to light to us.
Yeah.
Because I mean, naturally, that's what you want to do, right? Is go, hold on a second, no, that's not
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. That's not me. That's your
And
fault.
then yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But that's that level of the practice for me of self-awareness, is
Mm.
being willing to go, okay, yep, I'm just going to hear this, and as you said, like, see where it lands and go, yeah, there's truth in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think having things communicated to you in a way, people aren't going to be perfect communicators, but I think as partners the best thing that we can do is to help communicate things in a kind, loving, and respectful way. That's the
Mm.
best you can do.
Yeah.
Um,
My partner always says
yeah.
connection before correction, connect,
Oh,
and then, connection before correction. And when that's really consciously, when that's really consciously conveyed, the difference
mm-hmm.
that we both feel in our body when we have those tricky conversations is incredible. Really making a
Yeah,
conscious effort to connect. Hey, I love you, and this is really alive for me right now, and we need to talk about this. I love you,
yeah,
and I see you, and I know you're hurting or whatever it is, but we need to talk about
yeah,
this. you know
yeah,
it's beautiful,
yeah,
rather than just like slinging, hey, you did that thing and it's really like rah, and that's quite hard to receive. But again, we're not going to get it right all the time, and sometimes those outbursts have to happen. But yeah.
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 Oh, connection before correction.
Yeah.
Love that. And I guess even applying that to yourself,
Mm.
outside of a relationship,
Mm.
connection with yourself before correction. I think we can be
Yeah.
our own harshest critics a lot of the time. It's all about, I'm fixing this about myself,
Yeah.
as you said, with technology the way it is, with the distractions that we have, with this kind of hyper focus on doing all these things and living this
Mm.
picture perfect life. I think we do have a tendency to focus on correction of ourselves more than
Yeah.
connection with ourselves.
Yeah. And I think even just like an appearance that we're correcting,
Mm,
whether there's
yeah,
actually deep what
like
work going
healing
on.
work.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like whether that's actually going on or not. It's like, but hey, I'm going to a yoga class, so therefore like I'm correcting It's like,
Yeah.
but that truly deep connecting in with yourself, showing yourself that love and compassion, listening to your body, trusting what you need, giving
Mm.
yourself that, and then moving to a place of, okay, how can I, move forward from here in a way that feels really good. Mm.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been so great speaking with you, Ruby. If you were to share three things, three tools, or three of your favorite ways to experience self pleasure, what are those?
Beautiful. That's such a fun question. I think three beautiful ways to experience self pleasure. The first one I want to say would be putting on music that suits your mood and
Mm,
shutting down your eyes, placing your hands on your body and just feeling your body, really
mm,
feeling it, taking a moment to really drop into the sensations that are alive in your body,
mm-hmm,
noticing whether you might be breathing into your chest because you've had a bit of a stressful day. Um, or noticing what your heart rate's doing and just really taking a moment to drop deeply into the sensations of your body and then starting to respond from there to bringing yourself to a place of real calm and ease and settledness, I suppose. So that's
yeah,
one really beautiful way. um the second would be slowness. I think self pleasure. I think a lot of women I speak to, are in the habit of like, masturbation looks like grabbing a vibrator and you've got 5 minutes and you orgasm in 5 minutes done. And I understand that, a lot of people are time poor, but I think bringing slowness and intention into self pleasure is a really beautiful way to access deeper states of pleasure and deeper states of orgasm. So,
mm-hmm,
actually giving yourself an hour to deeply connect in with yourself, touch your whole body and,
mm,
your vulva and your pussy, and like just really explore all of yourself with slowness and with intention.
yeah,
And my third favorite self pleasure is breast massage and body massage. So, sitting in a mirror with
mm,
some beautiful oil and just really massaging your body in a way that feels really nourishing, playing around with different like pressures of your hands and yeah, giving yourself some love in that way, some love and pleasure in that way too. Mm.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
You're so welcome. It's such a favorite thing of mine to speak into is self-pleasure. I love it.
Yeah, I'm very excited to chat to you more about this. So, if people want to connect with you or learn more about you, how can they do that?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram at ruby.joseph.sex.coach, or you can find me at my website ruby-joseph.com. And yeah, reach out. I have a couple of really exciting new offerings in the works, and one-on-one mentoring is available at the moment as well. So yeah, if you're hearing this and you want to connect or find out more, feel free to send me an email or send me a message.
Amazing. I will also put all the links into the show notes. Ruby, thank you so much for joining me. For anyone listening, thank you for tuning in this week. You can also follow Self Podcast at self_podcast on Instagram, or follow me at Amanda Latran. That's Amanda Letran. Rate and review the show. Please give Ruby lots of love. I'm very grateful for the time that she's made to be with us here today. And yeah, release episodes every Thursday. I'll see you next week. Ruby, thank you so much again. Have an incredible day, and
Oh,
I'll chat to you soon.
thanks, Amanda. It's been such a pleasure.
Thanks. Bye.